Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Rugby League Back Chat. We're here for an hour of feisty Rugby League debate, and joining us this week, the League Express Editor Martyn Sadler and two of the most recognisable chairmen in the world of Rugby League, Neil Hugell from Kingston Rovers and Featherstone Rovers is Mark Campbell. Welcome along, guys. Glad to have you with us. It's been a Challenge Cup weekend, so let's start talking about the Challenge Cup. You two guys had teams competing in it. I'll mention results. Obviously, Featherstone went down to Hull, and Hull, despite having a man sent off, gave Wigan's Cage a real rattle. But despite some really exciting action, all the attention's been about, you know, the attendances, and it's the annual debate. Is the Challenge Cup finished? Is it finished, Martyn? Is it all over for the Challenge Cup?
I don't think it's finished, but it needs to be promoted more effectively. I mean, we're going to have a reorganisation at the RFL, hopefully with a new chief executive appointed soon. And I think one of his major priorities has to be the Challenge Cup and how to bring back the popularity that it used to have. You know, when I first started watching Rugby League, you could guarantee that the clubs that hosted Challenge Cup games would double or treble their normal sized crowd that they'd get for a league game, and that's gone out of the window. Right. Back in those days, the Challenge Cup was played perhaps every 2 or 3 weeks when it came into the season, and again it's now played at random times, it seems. So it never builds up any momentum. But the thing is that what you have to say about the weekend's games is that they were quite notable. There were some incredible events, you know, starting with Featherstone on Thursday night. Whatever you say about that game, it was an incredible experience to see it, and it carried on. You know, you got right up. You know, you had the Ben Barber show at Castleford on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Toronto were going great guns for 38 minutes and then completely blew it when Andrew Dixon got sent off and they got hammered in the second half.
Martyn might be looking back a bit with rose-tinted glasses. I think people misremember how many people were at these matches back in the day. I don't think it was actually as many as people think.
It was. Believe me, it was.
Well, I think there's some validity in that, isn't there? Because, you know...
you got 3,524 against Wigan. It's obviously a big game, we know that. And then your previous game on a Sunday against Leeds, pretty much equally big hitters coming to town. You had 9,095, which I don't know. I understand the season ticket holders, I get all that, but why? If you were a punter, which in many ways you are, you're a Hull KR fan. Would you have gone and paid through the gate when you were a lad and watched Wigan, or just the Leeds game? Why wouldn't you go and watch Wigan, but you would watch Leeds?
There's a number of issues in it, isn't there? I mean, firstly, as you allude to, season tickets and affordability. Yeah. You know, it's still very much a working class sport. Yeah. I mean, for me, there's some parallels in the sense with the playoffs at the end of the season, the sort of the eights, is that the crowds fall. And that, again, I think some of that's about affordability. Why would you go to the main event, the main bulk of the season, and then miss out on the back end playoffs? There's an affordability issue. I think one of the real cruxes of the problems with the Challenge Cup, and this comes back to the broadcasters, is that obviously Sky are the paymasters and will want to protect their interests very understandably. So to some extent, I think the Challenge Cup gets a little bit marginalised, right. But it loses momentum. So, for example, I think that the quarterfinals are in 3 weeks, but then it's another something like 9 weeks to the semis. So the whole dynamic of your team could change in that 9-week period. Well, you're right, because in the old days, when we were younger, it used to be every fortnight. You build momentum, and the other thing for me...
Hang on, Martyn. Sorry, Neil.
That's all right. The other thing for me is I'd consider supporting a move back to the traditional window for the Challenge Cup to see if we can move that forward in the season's calendar.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Just get one mark in there, because, right, you had a tie there which evoked memories of the greatest day in Featherstone Rovers history, obviously, when Featherstone Rovers beat Hull in the HB final.
It's a good day for
Hull. Right, so you played Hull. I've got the gate as 2-3-2-2. You played Batley before that, 2-4-2-5. So there's not a lot in it, and you might say it was a Thursday night, it was live on TV. But I think I'm right in saying, Neil, you put the ticket prices down for the cup tie, didn't you, at Hull KR? You kept the ticket prices the same. So what's your thinking and what's your take on pricing and the Challenge Cup as a whole?
Well, when we've dropped our prices, it hasn't really worked. So we just thought we'll keep the price the same. We'll try and promote the match as much as possible, which we did. We got a lot of kids here, which swelled the crowd. We had a lot of community clubs there. But what I would do with the ticketing, I would let each club keep its own proceeds. So each club has an incentive to promote the match.
Yeah, I mean, Mark's making a good point because without going all economic, putting the ticket prices down doesn't proportionally make as much difference as it should do. So the logical thing for clubs to do to make more money is actually put ticket prices up. But
part of the problem with our sport is part of our marketing strategy is to try and sell it cheap. And I think ultimately that's self-defeating.
Yeah.
Basically...
You create scarcity.
That's the trouble. We've got too long a season,
and that's the problem with something like Magic coming this weekend.
What you end up doing as well is you have to get each club to agree to lower the price. So what might work for us might not work for all.
Yeah.
So, but if you each kept your proceeds, you could do what you wanted with your tickets.
What happens with Magic? Does it happen with
Summer Bash? You keep your proceeds.
Which works, but
do you make any money out of Magic, Neil?
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about Magic in the next bit in a bit more detail.
Right, okay.
Challenge Cup. Last season, this round, there was 30,847 total gate, but Leeds and Hull FC were at home, who were obviously two of the better supported teams. This year, 28,748. So it's pretty much the same. It's not getting any worse, even though people are highlighting Widnes only getting 1,800 against Leeds.
Well, I think you see the
Is it really in that bad a crisis? Is it a crisis?
I think it's what games get on.
It's in need of a revamp, isn't it? It's certainly in need of some fresh energy bringing into it, because the numbers don't lie, do they? It's the same across the game as a whole. The numbers, certainly of the paying public, and I always use that as the barometer of the strength of the sport, is the people that go to it. And if they're not increasing in numbers, and
they're not.
static is probably the best. Is the best thing we can say, isn't it? Which is obviously very worrying.
Yeah, well, Super League
clubs need to work harder on promoting their own games, and if you incentivise it by you keep your own money for the Challenge Cup ties, I think you've got a chance of doing that.
Neil's making a good point about being static. It's exactly the right word. Super League attendances have been 8,700 and something for 2015, 2016, 2017. It couldn't be more static, really. So.
Well, and there's also counting issues around that as well, isn't there? Do you count all your season pass holders? You can show the statistics how you like, in a sense, but the overall picture is it ain't great.
It's not just the Challenge Cup, though, is it? It's the game as a whole. There's not a sufficient buzz around the game at the moment. We don't know how to create a buzz. We don't know how to create that sort of must-see feeling. I mean, interestingly, you've got a guy this weekend who's going to be breaking the British record. We now find it's not the world record, but nonetheless, if Luke Briscoe can score another try this weekend against Lee, that's going to be an incredible achievement, I think. And the RFL, somebody needs to be shouting from the rooftops about it.
Yeah, but I disagree with that. I disagree with that, because it's rather like the York, and I don't mean any discredit to your player, but it's rather like the York 140-odd-0 win. The standards of the game are so disparate from what they used to be that I don't actually think,
but there you are, so you're talking it down, Neil, already.
No, I'm trying to be realistic about it. I mean, it's a fabulous achievement at any level. But for example, again, don't use that as an example, but use another. Let's use an hypothetical example. Say Kieran Moss scores 8 tries and breaks a record set by an all-time great 50 years ago against a part-time side. Is it right that is expunged from the records? Because one of the problems as a game that we've got is related to the product on the field. There isn't enough good quality players to go around, so it stretches quality. Another issue is around, every week we talk about one thing in most games. Your game, my game this week,
referees,
a whole raft of games in previous weeks.
Couldn't agree more.
We're talking about and the micro analysis that goes into some things that, I'm sure we're going to talk about video refs and stuff like that. But you compare the two, Australia and England. You go to a video ref screen in Australia, make a decision in 5 seconds. We overanalyse it. Mostly,
not always.
Mostly, but we overanalyse it. We turn people off, and the whole thing around integrity and fairness is something that really...
Well, we had one on Thursday night, Josh Hardcastle. If the ball was 5 millimetres off the grass, wouldn't you give the try?
It's for reasons to give.
How long did they go to video ref? You should only be able to look at it, in my opinion, 4 times, and then you've got to make your decision.
But what happens with video refereeing is that it becomes a forensic analysis by definition.
The benefit of the doubt
that's the problem.
The attacking team.
It turns people off. They leave games.
There's no doubt about that, in my opinion.
I had someone come to me after the game on Sunday and say, why do you invest in this sport? I said, we're in an arm wrestle. Don't like that phrase, but And, you know, we get a player sent off, we get the penalty, he gets sending off sufficient.
Yeah.
Ruins the game.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying...
That's without a video ref.
That's not unique to us, but that, you know, that... But then to play the game, don't they?
But so many things we do in the game at the moment, Neil, seem almost designed to put people off.
Correct.
To actually deter spectators.
And that's right. But, you know, an example in the game, your game on Thursday, players are getting cute now. If they get hit round the head, they stay down, so the video ref can look at it rather than play the ball.
Players are like chameleons, they adapt to the rules and they'll use the rules to their own advantage.
But we're allowed to do
So we're just asking for trouble by having the video refs there.
But we've never been like football doing that. Players trying to get somebody else sent off or binned or...
Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think players always have them, but in the past they didn't have the opportunity to do it.
What year did Alex Murphy get Sid Hines sent off again?
Exactly, 1971 it was, wasn't it?
Right, OK.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a few cute players around.
We've always had that, to be honest, but it just... now it's just more important because we've got video refs.
To exploit it even more.
Exactly, yes, the mechanism's there. I couldn't agree more.
You made a good point. You raised the topic of your game and can't even remember how many people were sin-binned in that particular contest. Was it 6, I think, and a red card in that one? And then in the Sunday game, there was 3 sin-bins and a red card when Toronto turned in 40 minutes of filth in the second half.
I watched our game on Friday night.
Yeah.
And thought, what's all the fuss about?
Yeah.
There was nothing really dirty in the game. Missy Telepapa mistimes a tackle by...
I thought that was the worst incident
half
actually
a day.
in the game.
And he should have got a yellow card.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. But the rest of it were all...
And he's been suspended now, hasn't he?
It's a cup tie. It's a Thursday night at Featherstone.
There's
we're
a
the
issue around
underdogs.
sanitisation of the game.
Right, so do you think... so people like me that would say, if you don't want to get sent off for punching someone in the face, then the best way not to get sent off is don't punch someone in the face, are over-sanitising the game?
Yeah,
do you think the general public will still wear it in 2018?
To some extent.
Scraps, brawls, beef.
Well,
do they still want it? They still love it? Right.
To some extent. No one advocates violence, but I haven't played professional rugby league.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have.
No, not
but
so,
I imagine
no,
that...
I think you could probably guess that.
Well,
but you've been in a boxing ring. So
not to any standard. You've watched it on times 6 speed. But I think the problem is when someone's getting oiled in the face with a forearm, it must be very difficult not to react.
It's almost unnatural not to react, actually.
So then you've got a scenario where I think in some of those instances where there's no long-term injury or anything, the discretion of the ref is pull out 2 yellow cards, get rid of it, and then just move on. Because otherwise, it's, as I say, it's over-sanitisation. This is only my personal view, is that there are involved in that process, that side of the game, too many people have not actually been at the coal face.
The thing is, if you say that it's an automatic red card for a punch, then you are over-sanitising it. I mean, a punch is a natural thing where somebody needs a cooling-off period. Yeah. So the yellow card is the obvious
But do you think that
solution
what happened in the Toronto game, do you think that was detrimental? Because there's plenty of people think that Toronto should be charged with either failing to control their players or bringing the game to disrepute after that 40 minutes of filth at Warrington. Was that so bad
Toronto,
it was damaging the game on
Toronto
BBC?
have a problem of discipline, there's no doubt about that.
So people tune in to watch rugby league
but
for
I
the first
personally
think... Do you think their image of rugby league was worse than it was before they turned the television on, having watched Toronto play like that?
Jamie Peacock that, because he absolutely slaughtered us on BBC, saying our game was disgusting, should have been abandoned. I would like to see his thoughts after the Toronto game.
And that's Jamie who clobbered Willie Mason, a few years ago.
Well, Neil could ask Jamie, because Neil works with Jamie. But
he's unmanageable. He's good. Listen,
you've seen him recently?
Guy. Yeah, I saw him. He was at the game on Sunday after he'd just done the Leeds half marathon, so he was a bit fatigued. But it's like anything, isn't it? We've got 4 opinions. We all have different opinions. The problem is it's under the microscope because it's live on BBC.
Terrestrial TV. Yeah.
No, so it's obviously going to get a disproportionate amount of airtime.
Correct.
But we're all talking about a few little skirmishes rather than Luke Briscoe.
The Andrew Dixon punch on Sunday.
Equaling or beating a long-standing record.
The Andrew Dixon punch on Sunday was one of the lightest punches I think I've ever seen anybody give anyone. And even me, it wouldn't have hurt
me.
Maybe
should be suspended for that.
So quite frankly, to ruin the game, which effectively is what happened by sending him off. Permanent, giving him a red card.
Quick, because we've got
seems
to go to a break in a minute.
me.
What I just want to finally ask, just in a quick yes or no, the bizarre thing is, you mentioned earlier that people have been bagging referees all season. Ben Thaler got rid of Macron and sent him in the sin bin for back chat, and there was a wave of support on Twitter, which normally is bagging referees, saying that this is great, good old Ben Thaler. Was Ben, yes or no, was Ben Thaler spot on?
I didn't see it, but if what I hear is right, absolutely spot on. Yeah,
spot on for me. I thought Ben Thaler handled that absolutely superbly.
Yeah.
I wish it would happen more often.
Right. You've got to impose yourself as a referee sometimes, and I think he did so.
Right, instead of get in the bin, it's get to the break. So we're going to do that right now, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes here on Rugby League Back Chat to talk about the Magic Weekend that's coming up this weekend. Welcome back to a Rugby League Back Chat here at the Arc in Headingley, where we're in the company of Martyn Sadler, Mark Campbell and Neil Hugell. Let's talk about the Magic Weekend coming up. You've got your summer bash coming up, Mark, haven't you, for the Championship clubs?
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, which is, you get a nice trip to Blackpool. Yeah. Super League clubs get a nice trip to Newcastle. I think this is the 4th time at St James's Park and the 12th annual Magic Weekend. You've been involved in quite a lot. You've had some great. I mean, the one David Hodgson scored the try in the last minute. That must be one of your greatest moments at OKR. And then we won't mention that other game at the Etihad when the video referee, Mr. Ganson, quote, tracked the wrong man. #tracked the wrong man. Right. Do you like it? You know, is it good, bad, or indifferent?
Yeah. Well, we liked it when we were winning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always the case, isn't it? You know,
we haven't won at Summer Bash yet. We haven't won at Blackpool.
They keep giving you the tough fixtures, though, don't they?
We just got over the Bulls last year. That was a
great game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a game, that one, actually. But the concept, I think, is fabulous. I think we were talking earlier, I mentioned about scarcity value in terms of where the venue goes going forward, whether it stays at Newcastle, whether it goes somewhere else.
Right.
We've plateaued a little bit attendance-wise, haven't we? So it's really a question again about, are we energised? And does that come from...
Any thoughts about where it might go, Neil?
I think there's some options on the table, yeah. It's not for me to sort of articulate that today, but I mean, from my own personal view...
Just name a country or something.
Do some decent journalism and find
I'm asking you, that is decent journalism. I'm asking you here and now. I mean, how much more decent can it be?
I'm not breaching any confidences, you know, you read it in the trade press.
Right, that's always there. The Rugby Union have just had a successful European final weekend in Bilbao. Yeah. You like to go to Bilbao?
Not personally, like but you know, if people can't afford Challenge Cup ties at Craven Park, they ain't going to go to Bilbao, are they?
He's very good with his stats. 2016, 68,276 total gate. 2017, 65,407. These both at St James's Park. Do you think they'll get that again? Similar?
Well, I hope so, but I mean, we published a letter from somebody a week or two ago saying they'd seen very little publicity in Newcastle for the Magic Weekend, so, you know, you've got to believe it when somebody says it.
I think you get what you deserve, and if you don't publicise something, you don't... No. If the clubs don't push it and the RFL doesn't push it, you
That's
get what
we're
you
just
deserve.
bad at doing in our sport, I'm afraid.
And
you know,
I've seen very little for that. I've seen very little for Summer Bash. We've done a special shirt like everybody does. And it was based on a previous final win at Old Trafford, which had the orange in it, and we've had the ex-players at Blackpool,
we've had and the like.
Fantastic video done, but the Rugby League haven't. They've basically had it done for them, and they've not used it.
Right.
Neil, you're involved. I mean,
I've seen it, Mark. I thought it was very good.
Why are we such a poor sport at promoting ourselves? I mean, you're really, both of you are...
I think we've all got a part to play, haven't we? I know it's easy to bag the governing body, but at the end of the day, the clubs as a collective. I mean, you know, I'm sure we'll be talking about this. You know, there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and the clubs are more
It's always behind the scenes, though, isn't it?
Well, again, I come back to what I said to you. Do some...
I'll tell you what, why don't you... I've said this before, Neil, I'll ask you now. Why don't you allow the media into your Super League Chief Executives meetings, and then we'll report what's happened. Then it'll be all transparent. I mean, it'll be clear as day. And then we won't be accused of making it up, or certain forms of journalism, like Mr. Hetherington said, in words I couldn't use on the television. So why don't you let us in?
Oh, Gary, well, he'll be eulogising and waxing lyrically like he does.
But why don't you let us in, and we can see what you and Mr. Lenigan and Mr. McManus and Mr. Pearson are all saying about the structure of the competition. We can report it accurately.
I'll give you an example. In our newspaper this week, we've published the names of all the players who are coming off contract at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Now, that came, we had to get that, obviously, by subterfuge from somebody who gave it to us.
It's not like Watergate, is it, Martin?
There's no reason why that information shouldn't just be in the public domain anyway. What's the idea of keeping all that secret? I just can't understand it.
I don't think there is, actually. We were debating that last week, those lists, and what purpose they serve. But the clubs have to lead the way, and not be held hostage to agents doing mischievous things. So there's reasons.
Surely not, Neil. Agents don't do that, do they?
No.
I'll tell you what I want to ask you. What about the actual format of this Magic Weekend being a, for want of a better phrase, bog standard league match?
Yeah.
Right, and it's an uneven fixture.
Yeah.
So it's an odd fixture. So you've got to play Hull, who would be one of the best teams in the competition, usually won the Challenge Cup 2 years running. Yes, sorry. Widnes have got to play Saints, obviously the best team in the competition, and Salford play Catalan.
Yeah.
Right. How would you feel as chairman of Hull KR if you ended up 9th by virtue of the fact you'd lost to Hull? I'm not pretty sure you might beat Hull, obviously, and Salford or Catalan finished a point above you by the winning at the Magic Weekend against a weaker opponent? Would you go Garrity, or just sort of say, oh, it's one of those things?
Well, it could have already happened, couldn't it? I don't know what's happened in previous years. I've not really reanalysed all that. I think there's
is it fair?
Well, no, it's not fair, but there's a number of schools of thought there. We are where we are. We're stuck with what we've got. I mean, we have articulated a long time. The slot of 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. on Sunday for the two Hull clubs is rotten in itself. It's seen as one of the premier fixtures.
Yeah, the very last game of the
very last game. But the Saints-Wigan game no longer happens. Obviously, for different reasons, Leeds-Bradford no longer happens. For some reason, they still stick onto the Hull KR derby, and for me, that affects the integrity of the whole thing. Yeah. But there's a wider issue, isn't there, around Magic and how we revamp it. We talk about venue, but we also maybe talk about format and whether it should be. No,
you played Warrington once, didn't you? I think it was in Edinburgh, in Murrayfield, but generally you played Hull every year.
We played Saints.
You played Saints one,
Do you think the Magic Weekend ought to stay, Neil?
I think it's got its place. I think I think its potential is more than it probably delivers at the minute, and maybe that's a new format or a nines or whatever. I don't know.
It's another event, isn't it? What's good, and I think the format should change. That everybody just should.
Draw it. Is that better? Would you rather that?
I think it has an appeal in itself, doesn't it? To like, who have we got? You draw it maybe at a launch event.
Well, one thing I suggest,
something like that.
I would draw the times out of that as well.
Yeah.
And then everybody's even.
One thing I suggested for the Magic Weekend was making it a Yorkshire v Lancashire thing. So you put all the Yorkshire teams in one bag, all the Lancashire teams in the other. With Catalans as an honorary Lancashire side, and make each game a Yorkshire v Lancashire game. Do you think it's just you're just trying to make you're complicated with a complicated sake, aren't you? No, but the fact is, you want people to stay and watch more than just their club's game. Mark made a good point there. So it's another event, right? So you've got that. It's a big-ish event, right? But you've got the grand final, which is a big event. Are these two events, in your experience or your view, impacting on the Challenge Cup final? Because you've got two big events. You can't afford to go to every event sometimes, can you? So which one would you cross off? Would it be the Challenge Cup final? Is that
not a lot of money. This day and age, it's not a lot of money, is it?
You'd stay up there if you stay for 2 days, hotel and that.
We sort the calendar out, don't you, to make it more manageable. Right. We talked earlier about, the Challenge Cup always used to have a nice slot at the beginning of the year. Yeah. And then you've got the League Leaders Trophy to fit in there as well. So it's all a bit. There's too much going on. Why are we staying with the League Leaders Trophy after 30 weeks and not 23?
I would move the Challenge Cup back to where it used to be.
And April, beginning of May. Right. Okay. All these structure things are the things you're talking about. In your meetings about. I'm presuming Magic Weekend's part of the talk of whether you're going to all these kind of stuff.
Everything's on the table for discussion.
Would you vote for nines? I banged on about nines about 4 or 5 years ago. Would you stick your hand up for nines?
In principle, yeah. I mean, the problem with nines historically was it was always seen to be used for a reserve type of fixture or a player that was on the out at first team level and was being punished. Well, it's true. Right. The obvious example for us was when Paul Cook played Nines rugby with a load of academy kids.
Right,
you know? And so Nines, I think, has got a place if it's done right and if it's genuinely an elite.
Is this the event? Is Nines the event for Barry Hearn to promote? Because he's done it in netball and basketball, fast fives and stuff like that. Is that event
I would give him Magic or the Challenge Cup.
Yeah, so Magic Nines.
Yeah. Well, he won't work with the Challenge Cup because he doesn't work with the BBC. You know, he's a Sky guy, isn't he?
But, he's got darts contracts with the BBC.
Has he really?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's potentially possible.
Could that be the event that
But to think that Barry Hearn could just come and wave a magic wand.
No, he's not. Yeah.
I don't think we've got much to lose. I think I just said to Barry Hearn, which competition you want? Do you want that one or do you want that one? And let him have a crack at it.
It seems too easy a solution, doesn't it? You know,
and I'd look at. I mean, the venue. How Newcastle works is that people can nip out from the stadium, go to a couple of bars.
It is very good.
And then nip back.
Yeah, it's right in the centre of town.
You're not going to sit for 3 games, are you?
Same with Cardiff, wasn't it?
Cardiff's good.
Prime location, but again, the stadium
not like Coventry, for example.
Yeah.
Coventry's way off the centre of Coventry, isn't it?
Well, it's easy access. It's just off the motorway, but it's nowhere near the centre.
Yeah,
so you're gaining A, but losing on B.
There. Yeah.
I think Sheffield could be Sheffield's not a bad place.
Bramall Lane would be an ideal venue, actually.
The size of it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see an England game at Bramall Lane. I think the atmosphere at Bramall Lane is brilliant.
Is the pitch big enough? Or you've got the same problems at Anfield where you haven't got a 100 metre long pitch with an in-goal because they had all sorts of trouble with that.
Well, I've been to several games at Bramall Lane and it looks okay to me.
I mean, the Casford's pitch isn't big enough and they're still playing. What about the Summer Bash? Is the kind of baby brother that's been around since 2015, and of course you guys will be involved in that again. But it'll be Bradfordless this year.
I'd like to see the Summer Bash go somewhere different next year.
Yeah.
And maybe, if York have got their new stadium up and running, what a great place York is to go to. I think you've got to freshen it up maybe once every 4 years, because people just get you. Oh, it's going to be. I'm not going to go this year because it's going to be there next year. I'm going to go next year. I think you've got to change it round a bit and make people think, yeah, I'm going to go there. It's a different place.
I think you've just got to bear in mind that we're making assumptions we can go anywhere we want, can't we? As a game, it's there's not an infinite number of stadiums that will host it.
No.
Same with both competitions.
It's a complex thing with 12 teams going there, isn't it? And 6 teams on each day.
Yeah.
You need a dressing room facility, all sorts of things.
Yeah, it does. It's a logistical problem, and because you're just at the end of the football season, and clubs want to reseed, Premier League football grounds want to reseed and stuff, don't they?
There's always a sort of very discreet, limited window for the bigger venues.
Yeah. You mentioned the kit there, Mark, which is another interesting aspect. You've gone for a heritage kit. And sometimes I like to do facetious polls on Twitter, as Neil probably knows.
I don't go on Twitter anymore.
I've seen you on it.
I haven't been on it for months.
Haven't you?
No.
I
broke a golden rule.
You greatly missed. Oh, did you? Wasn't it me? Was it by any chance? You sometimes bite at me.
No, not really. No. I thought I
think you called me an irritant once on Twitter.
What were the golden rule you broke?
You told me a lot worse.
Certainly no.
I got into an argument with someone. It's like, why fall to that?
You're giving yourself angst, aren't you? You're giving yourself angst.
I red carded myself.
Right. Okay. But in the Magic Weekend, they've got these Marvel characters kits, haven't they? And I did a poll, so which should they have? Marvel characters kits, cartoon characters like Hong Kong, Fooey Fooey, Moi Moi, or Scooby Doo and things like that, or heritage kits, right? And heritage kits is a big winner. So I don't like these cartoon characters. With Warrington, why are Warrington playing as Ant-Man?
You're in the wrong generation, aren't you? I'm wearing a shirt like that as well.
This could be your awakening.
This is your strong subject.
Speak to your marketing man.
It's not your strong subject.
But also, I've got a big thing about
kids. But should the clubs choose a heritage? I know you've got a charity kit, haven't you? Obviously, I get all that. I understand. Salford have as well. I don't know exactly how much you're giving out the kit.
But it's up to the clubs to just.
No, but
if they think they can sell a kit.
Yeah, but should the league say we're going to be heritage? So you can pick any kit from your past. So you might have the cup final, early 80s, or when you won the league.
I had that one.
As a kit, right? And you might have the one from 83, and Hull might have the one from when the cup 2 years ago, and Wigan might have whatever, and Sheffield might have 1998, and you have it as a heritage kit rather than Ant-Man, Wolfman, whatever it is.
Personal choice, isn't it? I mean, Heritage Weekend is, it's
that a good thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got, you've got to be modern. You've got to modernise, but by the same token, you've got to reflect and acknowledge the history, because that's what's important about the game as well. Isn't it? It's mixing the the past, with the present, with the future.
But the thing is that to have a mishmash of things, with some teams having Captain Marvel things or whatever they might be, and others having cartoon things and others having heritage kits.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me. Let's all have a particular theme, as you say. Actually, heritage kits are a great idea for something like Magic Weekend, and let's go with that, because part of the problem is quite often that clubs playing kits, and you just don't recognise them.
Yeah.
They're playing kits that don't really pay much heed to their traditional colours.
There's a wider issue though, isn't there?
What happened at Catalans in St Helens the other week? So I'm watching, when I walked in, I'm thinking...
When they were camouflaged as
I thought the kits should have been the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Neil, you guys know, because you're trying to sell... we'll get you trying to sell kits, I get that,
There's
obviously.
a wider issue, and the wider issue is around... There's no brand value in Super League as an entity.
Right.
And there needs to be. There needs
exactly.
to be. Rather than 12 individual clubs, there needs to be 12 clubs but one collective that sits on top of it.
Yeah.
Who sells Super League branding?
Right.
Who sells merchandise? And that that again is something that really needs to be.
Well,
are we actually Super League? Should we be looking at
Well, the NFL, if I buy a San Francisco 49ers shirt, all the teams in the league get a 1/32 percentage of it. So, it's a centrally branded. The NFL symbol. Everyone knows the NFL symbol.
If everybody went collectively to a brand and went with one brand, that you would be able to say to them, we want this amount in sponsorship.
Yeah.
This is what this retail value is worth. So we want 20% back in sponsorship for the game.
Yeah.
The problem is that the game has very little sense of identity at all at the moment, in my opinion. Even when you look at the game being played on the pitch, there are no pitch markings anymore on rugby league games. They've all been removed. You look at the Australian game, for example, and all the grid lines have got 10, 20, 30 marked on them. They look like rugby league pitches, but our pitches now have just got the lines and nothing else to say what the competition is. Well, that's just... you're losing your identity gradually if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's fine detail, isn't it? If you don't do the small things
fine details
right,
are very important.
Exactly what I was saying. If you don't do the fine stuff right, the small details, it shows a bigger, wider malaise.
Every Premier League shirt, you've got the Premier League emblem, hasn't it? It's important.
You mean by the pictures not being marked? Well, if you look on any match at the moment, you won't see grid lines marked as 10, 20, 30 metres with the numbers on there. That's what I mean.
Okay. Well, Sky used to do it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right, well, we'll see what the pitch marked like in St James's Park at the weekend, at the Magic Weekend. We look forward to it. Good luck against Hull, Neil, and see if it can be an epic victory. Right, we'll come back in a couple of minutes to talk more about rugby league and the stars of the show, Sam Tompkins leaving Wigan, and more of that kind of stuff in the final part of Rugby League Back Chat. Welcome back to Rugby League Back Chat, the final part coming from the Arc in Headingley, and we're joined today by Martyn Sadler of League Express, first and chairman Mark Campbell, and Neil Hugell from Hull Kingston Rovers. Sam Tompkins, Samkins, as I like to call him, is leaving Wigan. It's been everyone knew he was going to leave. Thanks to our friend Phil Wilkinson, who tells us 195 appearances, 162 tries. What does that say about the competition or anything else about this, what appears to be a headline-grabbing transfer by the Catalan Dragons?
Well, it says to me that Catalan Dragons must be confident of not being relegated to the Championship this year, because that's going to be a very expensive contract for them if they are not playing in Super League next season. So that's a pretty big gamble on their part. You've got to admire.
They won't go there, will they, if they get relegated?
Well, you imagine
someone will pick him up like Hull Kingston Rovers or something like that.
But it's it's going to be problematic for both him and for them if they are not still there. So, and it's an interesting commentary on Wigan. Wigan, their crowds have gone down quite significantly this year. And, they were paying Sam, right at the top of their salary
well, he's
grading.
the marquee player.
He's the marquee player. So, they've obviously decided that they're going to look elsewhere, and maybe he's not delivering what they were looking for. But I think he's been outstanding this year, actually. All the attention's been on Ben Barber at full-back for Saints, but I think Sam Tompkins has been brilliant for Wigan as well. So you've got to be a bit surprised that he's leaving. Although, as you say, we've known it for a long time.
It's a decade since he made his debut in a cup tie when he scored 5
White
tries.
Haven,
and everyone thought, wow, who's this kid?
In the Challenge Cup, oddly enough.
In the Challenge Cup. It does have some purpose. Marquee player, are you a marquee player? Did you vote for a marquee player? I'm doing some journalism here. I'm asking some questions.
I can't remember.
Oh, come on, Neil.
I can't, honestly. I'm not evading the question.
Obviously, there's 2 now for clubs if you want them.
Probably. I mean, I think the view I have on all that is if you can afford it, have one. If you can't, do.
Are you in favour of scrapping the salary cap?
No.
Right.
How can you? I mean, until you've got 12 clubs that are all able to spend to the max. I think there should be some flex in it that gives affordability to the clubs who can afford it.
Right.
Why should we, if we can't afford a marquee player, hold back a Ben Barber coming to the competition? Right. There's an unfairness around that, isn't there? What value has he had it? He's probably one of the most exciting players in Super League for a number of years.
Neil, that if you can afford it, you should be able to.
Well, the salary cap in your competition is the same as Super League, isn't it? Which is kind of like basically what we could call the Toronto rule.
Well, Derek challenged that, didn't he? It had to change.
Yes.
To allow clubs to be.
Yeah. So you really are materially disadvantaged by that because you can't afford to spend anywhere near what Toronto could or Leigh, say, with a parachute payment. So how does that bother you? Because you are. Well, you're more than competitive, aren't you?
We are what we are.
Yeah.
We're Featherstone Rovers. Yeah. We've got a small catchment area. Yeah. We're competing against 2 other Super League clubs in our district.
Yeah.
But you have to work a bit harder.
Well, you are Featherstone Rovers and you are third and you're only 3 points off the top.
We're not doing bad.
And your crowds are a lot better than they've been for a few years.
I'm sure at the weekend I was a lot happier than David Argyle after seeing Toronto get absolutely stuffed in second half.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I'd be thinking if I spent a load of money on that team and that team's got absolutely walloped.
Just on that, that's quite interesting that because you. You've certainly quoted as, and I'm guessing this is right, that you made a coaching change at Featherstone Rovers when John Sharp left because you were, I think, quote, bored of watching Featherstone Rovers play. Am I fair to say?
It wasn't.
Fair about the start,
it wasn't that. Everybody made a big song and dance about that. I made a change because I couldn't see us going forward with John Sharp.
Right.
I didn't see him. I knew we need to get the maximum amount of our players. And ultimately, the maximum amount of the amount of money we've got to spend.
So, how much did style have come into it, or is it just always results with you guys?
Well, it's always results.
Right.
It's got to be results. But you want to be excited. But going to games, we're fans at game.
You've had to make a coach. I'll whisper it quietly.
I've never lost a good game yet. I don't believe there's such a thing.
Obviously, Chris Chester went, and eventually Tim Sheens has come in. And
you've got to be philosophical about it all, haven't you? I come to the conclusion that certain coaches work better in certain places at certain times, and with hindsight, did we make the right decision? Who knows? Same with Albert Kelly, was that the right decision? I mean, there's a lot gone on behind the scenes that will stay there, but when we recruited Craig Sandercock, it was on the back of a very exhaustive tour to Australia. Interviewed half a dozen people over a fortnight, and clearly that decision didn't bear fruit. We got Tim Sheens on the back of a conversation when he wanted to get back coaching. Yeah. So sometimes there's a bit of.
Well, you've always got to make decisions, and you can't regret them once you've made them. Once you've made them,
well, it's
no looking back.
It's easy to analyse after the past when
it's never easy. The last thing I ever want to do is change a coach because it's an absolute pain in the backside, and you have to virtually start all again. And it's all.
Well, you're almost giving them 2 years. To mould their own side and about which stage,
Well, so some people reckon that a coach at any club has got a 3-year lifespan, and after that point, there's the sort of repetition starts.
I disagree with that.
Coming down. Well, that's certainly possible, but some coaches who have been in place for a long time. I think Tony Smith at Warrington, great coach. I mean, anybody would say that Tony's a great coach, but I think he was there 7 years altogether, and eventually it just sort of became stale.
Isn't the fact?
I think it does.
I always repeat this a lot. bit of a mantra. The most important person at any sports club is the person that recruits the players. Now that might be the coach, but it might not be, because whoever your coach is, if they haven't got the right players, so is the recruitment actually what's the key element? I don't know who does it at your club. Is it Tim? I don't know if he's got people working with him. Jamie?
He works with Jamie. I think the problem again, and this comes to structure for a little bit, is it's very difficult to recruit. A, when you're the promoted side and last off the blocks, and B, when you're in an uncertain position for the following year. So recruitment is key, but you operate in a very, very difficult environment, and that's why you've probably got two-tier competition this year. It really happens in football, I know. But, you know, here you've got 5 clubs probably fighting for one spot at the bottom end of the table.
Musical chairs waiting for a seat when the music stops after 23 rounds. One will have a chair and the other 4 will be...
I don't agree with just the one person doing the recruitment.
No, I don't either. No.
Because if that fails, I want it to work. So I have an input in who we recruit,
the only problem
alongside the coach.
I tell you what the problem is, though. If you've got your coach
and the CEO,
if you've got your coach recruiting,
who has to pay for it?
If you've got your coach recruiting, Mark, and your coach decides, you know, what salaries all your players get individually. You've got one player who might be on 150,000, another player who might be on 15,000.
Probably not.
It then becomes very difficult for the coach. I've heard of plenty of examples. I've heard of plenty of examples where a coach has said to one of those young players, you know, pull your socks up, and the response is, well, tell that devil over there who's earning 150 grand, you know, to do his job.
Well, that's always a problem.
I would never let a coach negotiate player contracts.
The thing
for that reason.
I think that the other problem or potential problem is this, and this is the only time that I really get involved in it, is that the succession planning of when the coach goes, you know, there's an immediate need for short-term success, whether that is winning trophies or is promotion, is survival. Whereas the longer-term picture is the promotion of youth and your own kids from within. So my real focus is, because at the end of the day, if the coach doesn't pick the side and doesn't pick the players in broad terms, he's already got ready-made excuse. And say, well, actually, you brought that player in and that player. So you've got to factor that in. But ultimately, we want longer-term succession plan, which might mean that, and I take a real keen interest. We had a 17-year-old kid play on the wing on the weekend, made his debut, did very well. We need more of our kids to come through, and that might not be the coach's short-term aims and goals, which are to stay at the top table. So that's where I would see my role, the CEO's role, is to try and make sure that we've got enough of that sitting behind us that's going to elevate its way through.
Definitely. You sort of led me on to an interesting point here, because there's a school of thought that it's far better to be in the league below, winning a lot of games, playing some great stuff, party atmosphere, you know, a feel-good factor, which you had last year, obviously, the great run in the championship promotion, and you've had it the last few years, haven't you? Terrific. Than being at the bottom of the Super League and everything being pushing custard uphill with a fork. Witness is a good example. So they've been pushing custard uphill with a fork for years, and in the end it just becomes a drudgery going to game. Is that fair? You swap with Witness, would you?
I think the problem...
You've had both. Which is more fun? Because you're a fan. Which is more fun?
Well, the problem with Witness is the problem with us. If we survive this year...
you've got to do it again next year.
Until the structure changes. That's the problem. The structure is something that needs really properly looking at. But in terms of what I prefer, you hit the nail on the head there. You know, you always prefer to be at the top tier.
Right. But Neil, why did you all approve this structure? Because you know there are plenty of people, including me, who said at the time this is going to cause problems.
I didn't approve it. It went through on a 7-6 mandate. I mean, I think you need to look very close to here for who was articulating the strong views.
We're in Leeds, by the way.
The irony of it all was, in terms of the Super League vote, it went through on a 7-6 vote, of which the following year there were 12 clubs and 2 of the 7 weren't even in it. So actually, of the 12,
you should never change things so profound on just a 7-6. Well, this should be a 2/3 majority. Surely
this is a question I personally asked the chairman at the meeting when the vote went. I said, for such a, because like in normal company law of legislation, if it's a major change to the organisation, it has to be a 75% majority.
Sure.
I said, do you feel you've got a strong enough mandate to push this through? And his answer was it was going to go away and reflect on it. Well, he reflected on it very short term because then he made the announcement.
Right. The thing is that the structure that we use at the moment was first proposed for Scottish football, but it was rejected only by 2 clubs, but 2 clubs were enough to make sure it
But they had it in Scandinavian football before that, and they got
Swiss football. It was Swiss football.
Sorry. But they got rid of it because the structure in the first part of the competition makes 8th v 9th the most important game, obviously, and in the second phase of the competition it makes 4th v 5th the most important game. When everybody knows in a league the most important game should be 1st v 2nd, obviously. So it was. It was devaluing the competition all the way through.
At Swiss football, and they just rejected it.
It's good for you.
From our point of view, this structure for the Championship and Championship 1 has been fantastic. Because every week feels like a cup tie.
Would you think it was better if it was 2 up, 2 down?
No.
As long as you finish in the top 4, it's good.
I like it like this.
Right, fair enough.
From my personal point of view.
Would you think it was better if it was 2 up, 2 down? Like a proper relegation?
Is
that better?
I think British sport supports the proposition of jeopardy, doesn't it?
Yes,
my view is you should not put, at the minute, 5 clubs, almost half the competition at the minute are in jeopardy. 4 of those are going to be in jeopardy come the later stages of the season. I just think that's too many. I mean, personally, I would advocate for promotion and relegation, but I think if you churn more than 1 club a year, it's too many.
Right.
Because any more than that struggles to cope with promotion, if you're really honest about it.
And hearing in a small group, this is the problem we got, because you
guys
are saying A, and
from
Mark
our
has a different view.
point of view, we'd have a Toronto who potential to spend anything what they want. So we'd be virtually wasting our time this year.
Toronto
so what we will do, just put slippers up on and just waste a full year, because Featherstone won't be able to compete with that level of investment.
If you look at the league tables it sits today, the same 12 clubs are in Super League as were at the start of the mid-late process. And the game is weaker.
Yes, it is. It is.
There's been a bit of swapping, obviously, that you were involved in, but it's then
only been
Lee and Holker have swapped together.
Whatever structure you have, Neil, you've got to create a structure that allows clubs to strengthen, that doesn't financially cripple them. And I think this structure does financially cripple clubs in Super League that have got this jeopardy situation. I mean, the word jeopardy is a very easy word to use, and it's fine. It's fine in terms of promotion, relegation, but not if it actually puts clubs in danger. And I think that's what it does.
I've heard there's talk that the 1 up and 1 down, the club going down will get £1 million parachute payment.
Right.
And that's a problem. Yeah,
well, it is, but then you've got
that what that causes again is another Toronto in our league. So we're all just.
But what
how do we compete?
Players, what do you do about the players that are on full-time contracts that then either lose the jobs?
That's life.
There's an issue there.
That's life to me. I don't win every contract I tender for, but I don't go crying about it. I just work a bit harder and
just because you always know. Will it be the same? If we were to ask now, is it your view that the structure will be the same in 2019 and change later, or do you think there's still time to change now for next year? Is that even possible?
No, I believe, as I understand it, we are where we are. It's set in stone for this. The game would shoot itself in the foot if it was to make fundamental changes this late.
But then another year, 2020.
Well, we've got the TV contract till 2021. Why not start planning now?
Well, there's a
for
lot
what's
going
to happen
on.
from 2022.
What we've got at the minute is a real unified top table of Super League clubs. There's a real momentum about making the sport better.
Right.
And so I've never quite seen that energy in the room before, that collectivity.
So
how are you going to make it better?
I don't think that they're wanting to make the sport better. I think they're looking after their own entities, and that's why you need a strong governing body to look at the whole of the game.
See, I've sat on both sides of the fence, so I can understand the cynicism in what you say there, Matt. But I think that the bottom line is if the elite competition is stronger, then the rest of the game is stronger. And at the minute, there's too many clubs that rely on benefactors to keep them in existence.
But don't you think that benefactor is the Sky money as well? Because I look at some of the clubs and they aren't growing the crowds, and they're in Super League.
Well, that's because again, there's a holistic debate about, on one hand, the clubs need to get their act together. On the other hand, the game does not provide the trading conditions to improve. The product's not great, and that's a game-wide issue.
How would you improve it?
There's lots of things that we can do to improve the game. We've got to start with the products on the field. We've got to start with valuing ourselves as a sport, and we just don't do that.
Right. Well, that is it. We've run out of time, Martin. I know you wanted to come in there, but there was... I could go and happily talking for hours. No, you're just falling out, and that's why I've had to stop. That is just about all we've got time for then here on Rugby League Back Chat. For all the details on what's coming up on this channel, go to www.freesports.tv. Next week, Dave Woods will be in the chair with two Castleford legends, John Joyner and Mal Reilly, and the legend himself, Gary Schofield. But for now, it's thanks to our guests, Martyn Sadler from League Express, Featherstone Rovers chairman Mark Campbell, and OKR's chairman Neil Hugell. Thanks for joining us. Back in a week's time here on Rugby League Back Chat.